That was the scene at the Tennessee House chamber this week after Republican lawmakers passed a bill that would allow some teachers to carry concealed guns. There were vocal protests inside the galleries against putting more guns in schools. State troopers once again removed folks for protesting. Inside the chamber, Democratic legislators pleaded with their colleagues not to pass the bill. They argued that in the years since the Nashville Covenant mass shooting, more should have been accomplished by this legislative body.
I can't even believe this is the first major piece of gun legislation that we've addressed since the Covenant tragedy. Just think about that. This is what we're going to do. This is our reaction to teachers and children being murdered in a school. Our reaction is to throw more guns at it. What's wrong with us?
This law is ridiculous. It is dangerous. And parents are going to mourn and children are going to be hurt by it. This is increasing the dangerousness level of our schools. It is hurting and risking the lives of our children. And each and every one of us will be responsible and accountable for the gun violence that will happen due to this pathetic excuse for dealing with the gun violence epidemic.
Teachers are already doing 4 jobs, and they're paid poorly for one. They're a teacher, they're a nurse, they're a social worker, and they're a counselor. And now we're saying, take on another job, be school security. But we're going to continue to pay you less than you made 10 years ago. First of all, I cannot believe folks are even considering this. And then you're saying, well, take your pistol up against an AR-15 and multiple other weapons. Again, you were asking the ridiculous.
4 Republicans joined the Democrats in voting against the bill. Despite these objections, ultimately, the bill did pass. And earlier today, Tennessee's Republican governor, Bill Lee, signed the legislation arming teachers into law. In a statement, Governor Lee said, quote, I think it provides a valuable option to public schools who want to participate. There are folks across this state that differ on the way forward. We all agree we should keep our kids safe. That's why there's an option in the legislation, and it will be decided at the local level. I think that is the best way forward, end quote. Joining us now is the Tennessee Democratic State Representative Justin J. Pearson. Representative Pearson, good to see you again. Thank you for being with us. The country came to know you because of the stand that you and some of your colleagues in the legislature took about having government take a stronger hand in trying to deal with the disasters that you faced in Tennessee, the disaster that repeats itself across this country. And yet here we are today.
Yeah, I mean, the gun violence epidemic in our state is the leading cause of death for our children. We have a responsibility and an obligation to do everything possible to actually make our schools and our community safer. And the Republican Party of Tennessee, led by Cameron Sexton and William Lamberth, have refused to do that. Unfortunately, they view arming teachers, increasing the amount of gun violence in schools and in our communities as some form of a solution. No one would have ever imagined that after we experienced the tragedy that we did in the wake of the Covenant shooting, nor the hundreds of lives that we've lost due to gun violence since just a year ago, over 500 people in our state, that our resolution would be, let's try and increase the probability of having more gun violence. We didn't pass any red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders. We haven't addressed anything as it relates to gun safety storage. And this is the signature piece of legislation that Republicans have pushed, which is antithetical to anything that anyone in the state of Tennessee that I talked to have wanted to see in order for us to get to making our community safer.
I'm curious as to how it even came to be, because if you were going to just not bother, then just don't bother. This seems to be possibly one worse than not bothering. All of those reasonable things you've talked about, which are things, by the way, that conservatives and Republicans in this country have started to consider. Things like red flag laws, things like increased background checks, things like keeping guns away from the vulnerable and from children. How'd you skip all that and go to having teachers carry pistols?
Yeah, I mean, when you have people who are in positions of power who don't really care about protecting children, don't really care about making sure that teachers are safe, and don't want to take the actions that are necessary to prevent AR-15s and weapons of war from being on our streets and being in our communities, they try and take the political expediency route of saying that they are doing something, and they don't think critically about the ramifications of their decision making. And this is what this Republican Party too often does when it comes to legislating as it relates to gun violence, as it relates to the inaction on health care, the inaction on educational opportunity. It's always acting very quickly and very decisively without research, without information, without input from the people who are going to be most directly impacted. And so we skipped all of the good laws, all of the good policies, all the good practices, because the Tennessee Firearms Association and the National Rifle Association's fingerprints on the Republican Party just won't be let go of by the people who are in positions of power. And there is a refusal to acknowledge the pain and the suffering of our communities. There's a refusal to acknowledge that that pain and suffering is being caused by weak and cowardice actions of the legislature. Even this past week, an individual passed a law to prevent all localities from passing their own extreme risk protection orders, despite the fact that our state legislature refused to pass an extreme risk protection order. Now we want to prevent all of our cities from being able to do so. This is despicable, and it's very dangerous, and it's very harmful for our communities that children are going to be in schools where people have access to firearms so easily and so readily available.
It's wild to watch it unfolding, and I'm almost surprised, given what you and your colleagues did to bring the Tennessee legislature to the attention of those of us who had never paid any attention to it, that they're still doing it. But they're still doing it. So I appreciate the time that you've taken to come and tell us about it. Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson.